All right, I have a bunch of gobbledygook on the board. That is the food for thought for this morning. Oh, for those of us who are in here and not drowning, albeit I saw the sun coming out, or attempting to as I was walking in. We left off talking about the physical theater, and the primary focus of that was the actor-audience relationship and how it is different based upon the different kinds of theaters that exist in our world of theater today. However, this morning we're going to focus on the proscenium theater. There is a pseudo illustration of some of the things that I'll be talking about on the bottom of page 48. So you may want to go there, because so much of what I'm going to talk about you can't see because of this set that's on stage, but we're going to go on a field trip here in a few moments. Silly me, I left out one other thing. Anyway, all of this that's on the board has to do with a typical proscenium theater. This theater right now, as I described on Wednesday, is what is referred to as a flexible theater, meaning that it can convert from one style of stage and seating arrangement to another. The two types is obviously the proscenium, which is what we are in right now, and as I described at the end of class on Wednesday, it will convert to a thrust theater. However, the predominant style of staging throughout the world today is still the proscenium theater. Not that you need to write this down, but the first proscenium theater appeared in the world around 1617 in Italy. And it became the predominant style of theater at that point, and literally has remained the same for 400 years now. Since it is the most common type of theater, we're going to talk about some of the aspects, the equipment, the technology that you would find in a typical proscenium theater. This is what you're going to see in many regional theaters, and especially in terms of the Broadway theater. And obviously this production that you're going to be seeing in a couple of weeks is being done in a proscenium style theater. With all of that said, let me start off with this first question. Have you noticed that an awful lot of this theater space is black? Why? Exactly. It's so that you will focus on the action of the play. We want all of this stuff above your head, all the stuff backstage, all the stuff surrounding the stage to disappear from your consciousness, to literally forget that it exists. Something else, even though you're going to be running from one building to the next under an umbrella, but at some point when you're not trying to keep from drowning, as you walk away from this building toward Founders Hall or toward the Media Center or toward McNair Science Building or the Leatherman Science Building, I want you to turn around and look back at this building from the outside. And one of the things that you're going to see is that this building is shaped like this. The stage is right there. The seats where you are right there when you look at it from the outside. The question becomes, why does this section right here stick up several stories higher than the rest of it? Well, you can divide a theater space, this whole area, into two halves. This part out here is what we call the auditorium, or the seating area. What is contained inside that proscenium arch is what we call the stage house. Let's start with the auditorium area. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the seating area, why it is the way it is on Wednesday. Obviously, this glassed-in area that is behind you is the control booth for this theater. I've mentioned this before. I'll start up there. That is where the stage manager sits so that they have a perfect view of the action of the play to be able to call all the signals, or what we call the cues, for the lighting, the sound, entrances, exits, scene changes, and so on and so forth. As I described before, the stage manager is running the show. They are like a conductor of an orchestra. You don't start playing with an orchestra until the conductor brings you in. Same thing with a stage manager. They're conducting the show. We have an intercommunication system where they're in communication with the personnel backstage. They can contact actors in the dressing rooms, in the makeup studio, and the whole 9 yards. And they're running it from up there. Also joining the stage manager up there is the lighting operator. Our lighting system, like all of them nowadays, is completely computerized. Next week, I'll be programming all of the lighting effects for this particular play. It'll all be committed to the hard drive on that computer, where the operator simply, for all intents and purposes, has to push a button. And of course, the audio engineer is up there. Now, we don't mic actors here because we're trying to train them to project, as we talked about with acting, but we do play pre-show music and intermission music and background music, sound effects, and all of that is committed to computer and edited by way of computer and is operated by computer. And if you look up here in the dark recesses, you can see part of the sound system for this theater. There's speakers all over the place in here. We have basically what they have in a movie theater in terms of surround sound. But that's what's going on up there. Now, if you look directly above my head, there is this funny looking woven wire looking device. This is a unique lighting system for a flexible theater. If you go downtown and you go into the main stage of the Performing Arts Center, which is a proscenium theater, it has an entirely different kind of lighting system that is more typical of a typical proscenium theater. This lighting system has to serve two different kinds of stages, i.e. the proscenium as we are now, but then also it's got to serve the thrust when we've moved the seats to the side and the stage comes all the way out to here. This is what we call a wire net grid system. And it's literally what it looks like. It's a bunch of interwoven, small diameter cables. And you walk on it. There's an access door up on the second floor. We spent the last several days hanging. This show's really simple in terms of lighting. We hung or mounted about 50 lighting fixtures above my head in the last couple of days. And of course, before we could put the set up, we had to hang the lights that are suspended above the stage, and there's 25 or so up there, which we will be working on and setting what they're lighting and how they're lighting and all of that for the remainder of this week. Well, primarily this afternoon. That's what my job is working on lighting today. But that is something that is a little bit unique, and it's just called a wire net grid. And you can literally walk on it to access where you position the lights and so on and so forth. And it's kind of an interesting deal, because when you walk on it, especially when you're my size, it's like walking on a trampoline. It has that funny kind of give to it, not nearly as much as a trampoline has, but it feels a little soft under your feet. And it takes a while to kind of get used to being up there and walking on that mess. But it serves very well for a flexible theater like this one is. Now, let's get to the stage itself. I'm going to draw, again, what we call a floor plan. What is a floor plan? I had to draw a floor plan of this set, where the doors are going to be, where the archway is, where there's stairs to get up and down, so on and so forth. This play takes place on the second story of a house, and I had to lay all that out and lay out where the furniture was going to be. Again, the director needed this at the outset to be able to establish their blocking and their preliminary work leading up to staging the play. But a floor plan is a drawing as if you are a bird looking right straight down on an object like a house or this set or any room in a building. So this right here will be the proscenium arch. This is the area of the stage that is down below there, between the proscenium arch and the first row of seats. We denoted the other day that we call that the apron, and we also denoted on Wednesday that the areas all stage left and right is what we call the wing space. Now, I had written on the flip side of this thing the term plaster line. Plaster line. The plaster line is an imaginary line. You can't see it, but it's there. It's an imaginary line. And it runs across the stage on the back side of the proscenium arch. It's an imaginary line. It runs across the stage. Now, why is it called the plaster line? Going back to the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, that proscenium arch back in those days was made out of plaster. Ours is made out of concrete. But we don't call it the concrete line. We use the traditional term from centuries gone by. But it's an imaginary line. And what this line does is it denotes what we call the illusion of the fourth wall. It denotes what we call the illusion of the fourth wall. The setting that is on stage as you see it right now is one of the most typical kinds of sets that you'll see for a stage play. And it's what we call a box set. Most common, most typical, I've done a gazillion of them. What is called a box set. Now, where does the term box set come from? Stop and think. Any kind of realistic interior setting, an office, a living room, a dining room, an apartment, a kitchen. Geometrically speaking, those rooms are little more than a box. This theater we're in right now is a box. It's got four walls, a top and a bottom. We're boxed in. Well, here's the problem. If I want to be completely realistic, got realistic style characters, realistic costumes, real furniture, real walls, real doors, everything. Okay? Okay, I'm going to put that room on stage. What's the problem? What is the problem I've just created? You got a big wall blocking the audience's view. Exactly. So we have to create the illusion of the fourth wall. Now, in terms of this set, I got a little fancy. Alright. I'm using this big frame up here as the frame around my painting of the set. what we call a false proscenium. It's like I talked about the other day. It provides the boundaries for the audience's eyeballs. All right? Well, I did this because I knew I was going to put this arch up here, which leads to stairs going down, because this play takes place on the second floor of a southern mansion that is used for weddings. What's the name of the play? Always a Bridesmaid. It deals with weddings. So since I knew I was going to use that, then I used this, and to mirror that shape again, then I added all of this. So the edge of this platform becomes the fourth wall. That's the stopping point. That's where the actors have to stop. If they come out here, they'd be walking through a wall. So you create that illusion that there's a fourth wall. Now you also might say, well, wait a minute, Renat. A room has 90-degree corners, 90-degree corner, 90-degree corner, 90-degree corner. Your walls taper in. Well, you have to do that as a scenic designer. And here's the deal. We got seats down here. These people need to be able to see the action of the play. If the director stages something here, these people down here can't see it. So we cheat a little bit and taper the walls in a little bit. But it still looks like a realistic room. Sort of, maybe. If I've done my job well. I'd like to get the darn thing finished. Still got to hang doors and paint the floor. And finish the light. But that's what the plaster line does for us. It creates the illusion of the fourth wall. We clear on this? We hanging with me? It's imaginary. All right, a couple of other things that I had up there. Let me turn back. The most important mechanical feature of a typical proscenium theater is what we call the counterweight fly system. Counterweight fly system. For the first 2 months you came to class, if you had your eyes open at all, you would have noticed on this side of the theater a whole series of white ropes. Remember any of that? It's been a while since it was exposed, since we started erecting this set. That was part of the counterweight fly system. The word fly in theater, to fly something, means to raise and lower scenic elements from above the stage. Flying them out. Remember me talking about this area extending several stories higher than the rest of the building? That is because that rigging system, the counterweight fly system, is contained inside what we call the stage house. This is what we call the fly loft. The fly loft. And you can't really see anything right now, but you can obviously see that there's some things hanging above the stage. Some things hanging above the stage. In this case, all you can right now can see are some black drapes that are hanging across the stage. What you have with the counterweight fly system is this. Put my proscenium back. What is suspended above this stage is a series of very long pipes steel pipes. They are suspended through a cable and pulley system. In our case, there's over 24 of these things, not that you need to know this, but the fact that this rigging system does exist. And what we have is a whole series of pipes that run parallel to the stage. And we were able to lower these pipes in down to stage level. For example, we wanted to hang lights. We got to have lights above this set. We couldn't lower those pipes in to an appropriate level with the set on the stage. So we had to hang the lights over the set before the set was ever even there. And if you've noticed, those lights above that stage have been hanging there for quite a while. Now we're finally getting to the point of setting them where they're going to light. But we can also attach different kinds of scenery, painted backdrops, different kinds of drapery. That's all part of a typical proscenium theater. Now, in terms of reference to these terms right here, all proscenium theaters have what we call a grand drape. You can't see ours right now, but you're going to see it in a minute. Ours, like every gym or cafetorium in the world, has a velour drape that is usually matching the school colors. Where I went to high school, our school colors were black, white, and gold. So we had a gold velour main curtain or grand drape for our theater. It had a piece that ran across the top of the stage and parts that came down on the side that you could open and close to reveal a scene of a play, and so on and so forth. That's just your typical grand drape. The other drapes that I have listed, what we call legs and borders, these are what we call masking drapes. Masking drapes. Now, why masking drapes? The word mask, it means to hide. Halloween, you're hiding your personality behind a mask. An actor are supposed to hide their personality behind the mask of their character. Not that they're putting on a plastic or a rubber mask on their face, but in terms of the symbolism of it. So what you have that is suspended from the counterweight fly system is a series of drapes. This one is called the border. These run across the top of the stage to mask or hide the lighting or other equipment or other scenery that we have hanging above the stage. Those are called borders. And then there are also black drapes that work with the borders that hang down to the stage floor, and these are called legs. Their job is to mask or hide what is going on in the wing space. We don't want you to see actors changing costumes. We don't want you to see the next set waiting to be moved onto stage. We don't want you to see all the activities that are going on backstage. It'd be distracting. So we lower these in on each side of the stage to mask what is going on in the wing space during a scene. Ergo the reason that these two things are called masking drapes. The last one I have up here is what we call the cyclorama. Now again, you can't see this, but we're going to in a minute. Get back to my little drawing here. At the very back of the stage, again hanging from the counterweight fly system, is a horseshoe-shaped backdrop. Ours is horseshoe-shaped. And it is a very large backdrop. Ours is 30 feet high. And the color of this backdrop, it's just plain. There's nothing drawn on it or painted on it. But it's sky blue. It's a sky blue backdrop. That's what the cyclorama is. In this case, of this play, of this particular play, it is not necessary for you as an audience member to see what is outside the house, what's outside of this room. There are no windows. So you can't see what's outside. You don't need to know what's outside. But a lot of plays, you need to be able to see what's outside, especially if you're doing a play that takes place outside. And what do you see when you're outside? The sky. And that's what this backdrop helps us represent in the theater. And I have special lighting equipment that allows me to create, say, the colors of a sunrise or the colors of a sunset. The sky gets very beautiful late in the afternoon or very early in the morning with all of the different colors that you see in terms of what you might have learned in kindergarten called Roy G. Biv. Red, blue, green, indigo. You've heard that, haven't you? But we can also do things in terms of stars, the moon, clouds that move across it. Oh, we can do all kinds of lighting effects to create the illusion of the sky beyond. And that's what a cyclorama allows us to do. Now, just for kicks and giggles, let's go on a field trip here for a moment. Put your books down. Nobody's going to steal them. We're not going far. And follow me backstage. We're going to go this way. Come on, move on in, move on in. Half the people are still hanging on the other side of the scene. Move on down, move on down, move on down. Move on down. Okay, right here. This is the counterweight fly system. Let me slide along. I'm not going to crack you in the head. I'm just trying to get something in close enough. If it's set in here, it's kind of hard to do this. But you saw that I was lowering in one of these pipes. These things are every 8 inches. I mean, literally every 8 inches apart. You can see each one of these ropes represents one of these pipes. This one just happens to have some lighting equipment on it. What the deal is with the counterweight fly system is this. When we lower one of these pipes in, and of course we can't do it now because set's on stage, that pipe comes down to about 4 feet off the ground. That's where it stops. Right, that gets it at a good working height for a stagehand to be able to attach one of these drapes, to attach a backdrop, to attach a piece of scenery that we're going to raise and lower in. Heck, I've even raised and lowered actors. And you got to fly Peter Pan around London. So you've got to do those kinds of things as well. But the point here is this, we lower it in. We attach the equipment to it, the scenery to it, or what have you. But what you'll also notice here are these racks. When that pipe comes down, that rack goes up. Now, some of you are too far back over there But if you look over here, and especially in terms of this spiral staircase, what we have to do is this. When that pipe comes down and we add lighting equipment to it, I've got one pipe up here in the front that's got 15 or 18 lighting fixtures on it. All right, we lower that thing down, we add those lights. Those lights weigh about 20 pounds apiece. All right, what's 20 times 15? 300 pounds. Now, yeah, I got some Hulk Hogan pythons right here. They're aging, but I've still got some. She's over there going, yeah, let me show you these things. But am I going to be able now to pull that rope and haul 300 pounds up in the air? Not just no, but heck no. Not anymore. I'm old. So the deal is this. This rack goes up. The pipe is down. We attach the equipment to it. A couple of my stagehands have to climb that spiral staircase 75 feet up in the air where this rack stopped. These bricks that are in here, these weigh 35, 40 pounds apiece. What they're going to do then is I'm going to estimate the weight of whatever we've just attached to the pipe. 400 pounds. That means I got to put 10 of these in that rack. And what it's going to do, and if you looked at the total name of the fly system, the counterweight fly system, that we're going to counterbalance or counterweight what we've just attached to the pipe so that we're going to be able to raise and lower it. You ever been on a seesaw? All right. Would it work if you and I were on a seesaw? Why? Go ahead and say it. I'm a hell of a lot fatter than you are. She gets on, I sit on, I go down, she goes, pew! When a seesaw works the best is when the two people are about the same weight, right? This is what this is all about. It's about getting it counterbalanced. And therefore, I can then come over here, and like with that one with the lighting equipment on it, I'm doing that with 2 fingers because we have counterbalanced it in terms of the physics of weights and measures. There's one down there that's got a whole bunch of stuff in it. All of these right now are empty because we're not using that many. So that's what the counterweight fly system is basically about. Obviously here we have the grand drape, but we've got it open and out of the way because we're not using it for this show. We have borders and legs placed appropriately. I'm not going to clock anybody, but that's a leg. It'll come all the way into the floor for performances and when necessary. But the purpose of that is to mask the wing space. In this case, the set pretty much hides all the stuff that's going to be going on back here between scenes. And of course, we have drapes that run horizontally across the stage. Those are the borders that then hide this lighting equipment and other things that we've got suspended above this stage. And the last thing I talked about, let me wheedle my way up here, is this thing that we call the cyclorama. I'm not going to clock you, so don't get upset. But anyway, that thing wraps all the way around back here, comes all the way to the stage floor. And right in here, you see some pretty weird looking light fixtures, not the ones that are on, those are just for illumination purposes. But we've got some specialized lighting here, those are LED lights. I just spent $30,000 on those blasted things. But anyway, to get rid of the old equipment we had so that I can light that thing to create the illusion of sunrises and sunsets and all the other things that you would have in terms of atmospheric conditions of a sky. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about in terms of the paraphernalia that is back here. When I get this set finished next week or the next week during performances, I'm going to let you folks come back here and wander around and kind of see what all of this mess is about. Obviously, it's not as pretty from the back as it is from the front. But again, what is it? It's just an illusion. And that's what a scenic design really is. All right, any other questions before we go back and flop? All right, well, let's go on back out where we were sitting. All right, any questions about what I've been talking about in terms of the basic features of typical proscenium theater? All right, let's move then. Whoa.
What do you call the highest part of theater?
Stage house, also known as the fly loft. The idea here is, and good question, it is so that when we have scenery or backdrops or other things of that nature that are going to be used for a particular play, is that we can raise it up high enough to get it out of sight of the audience, which is the reason why it is so much higher than the rest of the building. It's like the loft in a barn, the fly loft. Let's flip to page 196. It's a kind of a segue into next week. 196. These pages starting on 196 is actually a preface to 3 chapters that we're going to be looking at here in the next several class sessions. One chapter deals with set design or scenic design, one deals with lighting design, and one deals with costume design. But I want to read you a piece that kind of leads us into all of this. Again, on page 196, it says, "Our experience of seeing a performance does not occur in a visual vacuum. We sit in the theater watching what unfolds before us. Naturally, we focus most keenly on the performers who are speaking and moving about the stage. But the visual images of scenery, costumes, and lighting are always present. We also become aware of elements of sound that are part of a production. The creation of these effects is the responsibility of the designers." What the author is alluding to here is that with every theatrical production, there are 4 designers involved with it. Now, what is a designer? It's the person that creates a specific visual or aural, A-U-R-A-L, component of the play. I serve in 2 areas at Francis Marion. I handle 2 visual elements of a play. I design or create the setting, and I design or create the lighting. What is up there on stage behind me is the result of analysis of the script, of discussions with the director, of research, and most importantly, my own imagination. The same will hold true for the lighting. So with every play, you really have 4 designers. You have a scenic designer, you have a lighting designer, you have a costume designer, and you have a sound designer. There's 4 areas of design that have to be dealt with that all contribute to the total presentation of a given play. Costumes, 4. Scenery, lighting, costumes, and sound. In no particular order. They're all equally important. On page 199 that begins chapter 9 on scenery, the author says, when we attend a theater production, the first encounter is the environment, the look and size of the stage space. Is it small, formal, informal? Then as the presentation begins, we become aware of the performers and the roles they are playing, as well as the story that begins to unfold. Along with these elements which initially strike us, there are other factors, the scenery, the costumes, the lighting, and the sound. And in their own way, these are crucial to the theater experience as any other aspect, which simply reinforces what I just said. I asked a question when we began talking about acting as to how many of you thought you could become an actor, and very few of you put up your hand. And I said, and replied to that, well, we're all actors every day. And you can agree with that in terms of the discussions that followed. Believe it or not, all of you are scenic designers. Does anybody in here live in just a plain Jane dormitory room? You do? I'm sorry. When I first went to college in the early 70s, when I walked into my assigned dormitory room, and I have to tell you this, when I went to college, all freshmen had to live in a dorm. You were required by the university to live in a dorm. Also, all freshmen had to leave their cars at home. There were too many students with automobiles and not enough parking spaces. And you people whine and complain about having to walk 50 feet from the parking lot. Anyway, the point of this is this. When I walked into that room, it was 4 walls, concrete block, painted off-white. There was a steel bed, a steel desk, a steel chest, and a steel closet. And a big heavy-duty door and tile on the floor that looked just like this. And if there had been bars on the window, I would have sworn I'd just gone to jail. I mean, that's the way it appeared to me. Once I did my year time in that place, I got the hell out of that joint. Because it was nasty. In the wintertime, you'd get out of bed and the floor would be so cold you couldn't stand on it. Bathroom was down the hall. The point of it is this. I said we're all scenic designers just like we are all actors. What was the first thing that I did when I moved into that room? Pardon me? Added some things like what? Put posters on the wall. First thing I did is I went to the local carpet store and bought a scrap piece of carpet and carpeted that floor so I wouldn't have to stand on that cold tile every day. But I did what we might call interior decoration. When somebody walked into that room after that first day, they saw something of me. They saw things that spoke to my personality. If you walk into my office, for example, today, you're going to see an awful lot of theatrical memorabilia in there. Things that I've saved and posters from plays that I've done for the last 45 years. You walk into my home and you're going to see none of that. because I leave it here. What you will see when you go into my home is a lot of dead animals. And as soon as you walk into that house, you know somebody that lives there, hunts and fishes. It's communicating information. Where you live, what you've done to it. You're communicating information. That's what a scenic designer is trying to do, is to communicate expository information about the people who inhabit this location. That's all scenic design is about. Communicating information about the play and the people who are involved in the play, the characters in the play. And just like with wherever you live, people walk in and they go, "Ooh." If you'd have walked into my house 29 years ago, you probably would have tripped and fallen over some Fisher-Price toys. What would that have told you? I had small children. Oh, that's long gone, but it communicates information. That's where I'll stop today, and that's where I'll pick up next week.